Welcome back to Only Tottenham. Whisper it quietly, lads. Frank in? We back? Are we back?
That's a
Or are we
question
not
for
back?
Ish.
Frank in? I mean, I said Frank out as well, to be fair.
So
I think we all did.
We
I
were
think
three
you did as
little.
well, Seb, didn't you?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I did. I'm owning
Trying to
it now,
pass the buck
though.
on to you, mate.
May have gone a little bit early.
Yeah.
Are we back?
I'm not there
We were
yet.
right at the time, by the way, but now it's just a little baby
That's right,
step.
mate. You don't
in
have
the
to
right
get so
direction.
defensive. It's just...
I am all right. I've got a big reputation to maintain.
Are we back?
We
2 wins
might
in a
be.
week. Son
Yeah.
back last night. Vibes back. Cudis
been a very
cup chair
positive
celebration.
week. It has been a very positive week, and at home as well, which was the important thing. So the vibes are back at Spurs a little bit. Actually, makes you want to go back to the stadium again. But yeah. I don't know. It's Javi Simmons, 2 goals in 2 games, absolutely flying, which is lovely as well. I feel like the 2 things that we needed to happen happened over the last week, which was back-to-back man of the match performances and goals from Xavi. And 2 wins at home at the stadiums just boost the vibes a little bit. And yeah, like I said, it's baby steps in the right direction over the last week or so for me. It's not completely game changing on Frank, and I don't expect people to sort of like all of us who were at a point where we maybe wanted Frank to go. It's not completely swiveled me yet, but it definitely is one of those where I'm not still going to be screaming Frank out. Because we have seen small steps in the right direction, which is all we could have hoped for really in these 2 games.
We've had 3 out of our top 5 highest XG performances in the last week.
Yeah.
Well, last week and a half. PSG, Brentford, and Slavia Prague last night. Albeit it was 2 penalties and an own goal, but it was better again last night and more of a step in the right direction. Kish, do you want to apologise to Thomas Frank, or are you?
No, I'm not gonna apologise to anybody. Do I not even get an intro on this pod? I thought.
Yeah,
No,
I
we've
was
joined by.
about to say.
No, hang on a minute. You were about to say you were just
What a
going on
shit-
a
what a
monologue
shit
about Javi
host.
Simmons' back-to-back performances for the last 2 weeks.
Mate, that should have been the first thing you said.
We're joined by obviously Kish from Lily White Lab, who is making some excellent content, as you guys will know and would have seen. But yeah, are you going to apologise or not?
I don't apologise to anyone.
Fair respect, yeah. Don't back down, double down.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a double down type person. But what I would say is there's been.
So Frank's got to go after last night. Has he got to go?
I'm as much as I want to be positive, I'm not super convinced. I think one thing that I can definitely say, he's trying to at least get the ball back in play quicker. Like, I know that's bare minimum, but we're not taking hours on every set piece, which is a small step that, like, especially I haven't been to the last 2 games, but just even watched them on TV, you can see that we're not trying to set up a long throw when it's thrown to us on the halfway line or whatever it is. So
yeah,
that's a good sign that he understands that there's certain expectations, especially at home. And it's been more fluid. I think he is committing more men forward, and they're much less rigid. We're seeing much more rotations, and you're finding Cudis popping up in central areas, which wasn't really a thing. He was just stuck on the right flank. And it just looks more fluid, and the shackles have come off a little bit. So I feel like he has had to respond to the criticism, really, and it does. I think as a professional manager, that's not that common that managers suddenly will, and I don't think he's torn everything up and started again, but it's quite rare that managers sort of give in to that pressure, and I think it actually is.
Case in point, Ange, right, to an extent, in the sense that on the opposite side of the spectrum, where I think fans were asking for a touch more pragmatism and all these kind of things. Of course, we saw that on the run to the Europa League final, but a lot of managers. I think we always talk about players having egos, but managers do as well, and they have, especially managers that have such a strong stylistic belief and kind of identity, which I don't think Frank necessarily does have. So I think he's probably more likely to respond. And there was some stuff that came out actually. I can't remember where I read it or where I saw it, that Frank is actually super receptive to the players' feedback and the kind of advice within the club and all these kind of things about the tactics and that. So that's kind of encouraging. Obviously, you want a manager that is kind of steadfast in their principles, but you also want them to be a bit malleable as well. But the way I see it is that hopefully Fulham was as bad as it got. It can't get as bad as that. We had to sink that low to then kind of like almost for him to realise that this isn't sustainable. This isn't the way. This isn't the way forward. And I think obviously all of the toxicity that came from the fans, and rightly so, by the way. I think toxicity is just, doesn't necessarily mean people are in the wrong for doing that, but there's no getting away from what the atmosphere was like. And then on Saturday and last night, when you're getting your more exciting players into the game to really affect it, especially on Saturday, you look at how the fans kind of respond. Like that cheer for the Javi Simmons goal against Brentford, and even the assist to an extent. Like people are kind of so happy for him because they feel like the shackles have been freed off a kid that we know has got such incredible potential, but has kind of been stifled and limited a hell of a lot by the way that we play. And last night as well, like a lot more freedom. There was a couple of things last night that felt like also a little bit of an evolution from Saturday in terms of what he wanted to do. Saturday just kind of felt like back to the setup that we saw against Copenhagen, back to the setup that we kind of saw in pre-season with that 3-2-5 build-up at times. Saturday, there was a lot more fluidity and rotation across the front line. And then last night, it felt like, even though I don't think it was as convincing performance maybe as Brentford at points, but it felt like there was a step up in terms of slightly more rotation. Porro kind of joining the front line at points, Gray dropping back. It felt like, okay, this is my structure now. And then how can I make it slightly more fluid? Seb, what did you make of the performance kind of as a whole last night in terms of what Thomas Frank did?
It was good. I said on Twitter last night, and I got flamed a little bit for it. There was quite a forgettable game. I didn't even mean
why
that
are you being so negative?
Oh no, oh god, classic. But I didn't mean that in terms of a performance. Like it wasn't a good performance. It was a fine performance. It was a decent performance against a side that I think are really, really poor in Slavia. I don't think they've scored in the Champions League yet this season, and I do think that played into it a little bit. But it's good that Frank has changed and accepted some responsibility for the way that we are playing, and to show that he can drop his ego and make changes, even if they are small, that the fans want to see, to, like Kish said, get the ball back in play a little bit quicker, to be a little bit braver in terms of committing bodies forward. And I'm sending messages to the midfielders that, okay, lads, it is actually all right to pass the ball forwards instead of just sideways and backwards, which is always a nice change to see. And we were good last night. We were fine. We did what we needed to do. There was a little period in the game at 2-0 where I thought we really took our foot off the gas almost a little bit too much, and they had a couple of chances. A couple of them came down our right-hand side, and again, I didn't think it was a very convincing performance from Porro. He was the only one that I kind of looked at yesterday and thought he was a little bit of a weak point, but we survived those moments. Vicario made a couple of decent saves. Van der Ven and Romero sort of cleaned a few things up, and then put our foot down again in the last 20 minutes, got our third goal, and yeah, it was just kind of one of those where you go, job done against quite a poor team, more positives to take into the weekend, a couple of wins in a row. But like Kish said as well, there still hasn't been much over the last couple of games that I look at and go, oh, like we've been amazing and there's been a drastic change. It's more just baby steps in the right direction. I think a game like Forest at the weekend, which we'll get onto later, is a real sort of tester in terms of you're going to come under a lot more pressure with the atmosphere away at the City grounds. A tough place to go. Dyche's teams are going to sit in. They're going to look to hit you on the break. How are we then going to be brave in that kind of game? Do we still see the setup? I worry a little bit that Xavi started 2 games in a row. Does Thomas Frank drop him at the weekend? That would be a bit of a nightmare. And it's going to be a case of, do we go into that game and he plays Archie Gray and he plays maybe a Lucas Bergwijn and he plays a Javi Simmons, and we see the same sort of bravery and then performance? And even if we lose, I think I'd rather lose and be brave. Sounds stupid, but I'd rather lose and still see the same positives in terms of the lineup and the setup than us just reverting back to type and going for Paulinho and Bentancur and dropping Xavi and, really almost kind of shitting ourselves in a game that looks a little bit tougher on paper and not giving a good performance, and then maybe, escaping with a 0-0 draw or something. I think that's going to be the real key, and over the next couple of weeks it's going to be more baby steps in the right direction needed. But yeah, last night was good, and in terms of the individuals, Javi Simmons getting another goal, taking a penalty, which I thought was a couple of weird choices for penalty takers with Cudis and Javi Simmons, but especially when you had Richarlison and Moani on the pitch, who are probably better. But it was a nice confidence booster for both of them. I thought Cudis was excellent as well again last night. He's honestly blows my mind how good he is and how consistently good he's been for us this season. And yeah, I think, what did you make of Xavi's performance, Kish? Because obviously, and his performance over the last couple of games, because obviously we've all been very vocal about him in a Spurs shirt so far, and obviously the general consensus from people who probably don't watch Spurs as much and just look at FOTMob after a game and see a 6 rating, no goal contributions. But what have you seen differently in his performances sort of over the last couple of games, or has there really been much difference outside of just getting a couple of goals?
Yeah, but before I touch on Javi, I also wanted to just come on the back of what you said, because I think one thing we've got a caveat with these two performances is that these are teams that sort of played into Frank's hands. I think both teams pressed us pretty man-to-man and aggressively, and Frank dreams about spaces being left in behind like that. And you see the first goal against Brentford. That is a Frank goal. Like that's like, you know, a drawing the opposition out, pinging it into the channel, and then crossing it in. Like that's his dream goal. And it was weird that Brentford played so much into our hands in that sense.
I think they saw it as an opportunity, didn't they? I think like you look at the way that Brentford set up against Arsenal compared to how they played against us, and I think not just in terms of the rotations of the players, but it was I did a podcast on here with Mike, the Brentford fan, before the game from the Ealing Road pod, and he was like, "We'll press high, Damsgaard, Thiago in the front two." Whereas Arsenal, it was just like sit back, so
but I think they
thought they could get us. I think
the way to beat Frank for me, or at least not concede against Frank, is sitting off, because I feel like he struggles to know what to do when those spaces don't open up in behind, and you have to create spaces in more creative and fluid ways. And so I think, touching on Javi Simmons, one thing I've noticed about his game a lot as of recent, which I've talked about, is the running in behind. And obviously he got the assist against Brentford for that. But I think even more so than actually getting things from that ball in behind, it buys him extra seconds in when he does come feet, because if you're making that run continuously in behind, first 5-10 minutes, like the defender who's marking you constantly is going to have that in their mind after those 10 minutes. And it just makes them think a bit more and drop off a little bit more, because they're anticipating a potential running behind. And they always see that as, you know, more dangerous because you're running towards goal. This just buys you that extra second. I think Xavi's like finding ways of being able to create more space for himself, and that is one. So you test that back line a couple times, make that run. Even if you don't get the ball, the next time you can, you know, decoy to go in behind and then come short, and that just buys that extra second. Which then I think what you've seen from him is be able to actually turn on it and face goal and be able to actually pass forwards. Whereas a lot of the times previously he's been receiving it, man on his back already, and all he can really do is pop it off at times, or try and turn, but the guy's kind of right there, and the shape is compact. So I think those are potential Frank solutions, but they also might be Xavi solutions, and that is the kind of thing you do when you're getting used to a league. You find, you know, Javi Simmons is, like most number 10s, is not like some super well built strong jeweler, but these players find solutions of how to cope with the physical demands of leagues. And that doesn't mean going to the gym and putting on loads of like muscle. It means finding little clever ways of getting more time on the ball. That is one thing I've noticed with him. And obviously his quality is undeniable. I think one thing that's kind of going under the radar with the way he won that penalty.
Such a good touch.
Like he just decoys a little bit as if he's going to open out with his left foot, and then just cuts across, and then like I think that's just sign of a quality player. And obviously,
do you know who it reminded me of? It really reminded me of Modric.
Yeah,
you know, like especially at Tottenham, like there was a couple of goals that Modric scored. I remember there was one against Werder Bremen in the Champions League where someone clipped across into Crouch and he nods it down, and he just does that little disguise touch and volleys it in the corner.
Yes, and there's one other on the edge of the box where I think it might have been against Liverpool, maybe. But he
one with Liverpool where he like wraps it in the top corner. But
there's one where he decoys with a touch, and then cuts back across, and then I can't remember who's that's against.
I know I can picture it, but I can't remember who it's against.
Yeah.
And I feel like although he's obviously playing in more advanced areas, I think in terms of his ability to use that low centre of gravity, draw players in, kind of like Maddison-esque at times almost as well, to then either get fouls or create that separation, is like. He's very like. There's been a lot of people that have compared him to Modric in the sense of like, okay, it's going to take a minute to like adapt to the physicality. Modric, like scrawny little Croatian guy coming over, not used to the kind of, but like not used to like intensity of the Prem and all these kind of things. And Modric looked like a scarecrow, didn't he? He did look small, like lightweight. Yeah. But it's just like it takes time and he was another one where like when he first came in, he was playing out on the left-hand side a hell of a lot, and it took again, these are two different types of players, but I think it was Joe Jordan said to Harry Redknapp, didn't he? It was a game we played against Chelsea where it was like, let's play him in central midfield, and then we never really looked back from there. And it's, that was over the course of a longer period of time than what we're seeing with Simmons right now, but that touch was quite reminiscent of him for me.
Do you think Joe Jordan won Modric a Ballon d'Or pretty much then?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was Joe Jordan that said it. Might have been Joe Jordan or who else was on my coaching staff?
Joe Jordan was there.
Was it Clive Allen maybe? Yeah, it was. Yeah. One thing I was going to say, I was going to ask you off the back of that, is obviously I think, like you said, those two game plans, especially Brentford, and then last night there was quite a bit of space from early on in the game. They did play into our hands to an extent. I also thought there was moments against Brentford where we did look better at kind of playing through a lower block. There was that nice bit of play where we're kind of really kind of pushed up quite aggressively. Romero punches that ball into Richarlison, little first time layoff to Simmons, and a nice bit of combination play in it. We work it to the edge of the box, and Simmons tries that little flick with the outside of his boot to then, I think he tries to play in Mwani over the top. Doesn't quite come off, but it was like better movement, better rotations, a better, like if you keep doing that, then you'll be able to pull them apart and find a bit of space. Do you think that because I look at Tottenham and I think from a tactical perspective, Frank has got to find more solutions to be able to cope when the game is like that. But also, I do hope that now Simmons is kind of up to speed and he's given, like, maybe his, hindsight's 2020, but maybe this management of him has kind of worked in this way to get the best out of him in the last couple of games. But the confidence that he's playing with right now, coupled with the individual quality of the likes of Romero, who like to take responsibility in the game. And also we'll see that with Archie Gray as well. Do you think those players playing with slightly more confidence now, who are going to be so key to opening up those teams, will also help that balance as well as Frank kind of finding more tactical solutions?
For sure. Like, I think the intent is so important, and the proactiveness. And I think, like I said, I know it seems stupid, but the thing about getting the ball back in play quicker just shows intent rather than more than anything else. That shows intent of we want to play, we want to have the ball, we want to control this game, and that's something I've struggled to see in any of our previous games. So I think that's massive. I also think Van der Ven's coming a long way with his passing and showing a lot of intent as well. And I think those centre-backs especially are suited to play that way, suited both on and off the ball to play on the front foot. And this is my thing with especially Van der Ven, but Romero as well, is like, these guys look so much better when they're able to play on the front foot, play with intent on the ball and punch passes through and not have to hesitate and wait. But also they look so much better defending high and not defending their own box. I mean, Van der Ven, I think more than anyone in this team, I think, to be honest, I don't think anyone in the team has actually really improved this season, barring Van der Ven. I think Van der Ven's gone up a level. I don't see that for everyone else anyone else in the team, really. So I think hopefully that the freedom from Frank to be able to give those players the responsibility will put it back into their hands, because the players that we have in the team are players that want to control games, and I think part of them looking a little bit disinterested in the past couple of weeks has been due to that setup and not having much freedom to dictate the game.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing as well.
Yeah, I thought Romero and Van der Ven's performance actually again went a bit under the radar last night. There was a lovely Romero's ball in behind to Cudis for that chance in the first 10 minutes. Just like, again, when we sat off a little bit more, not camped in their half, but you can just open the game up with one pass like that and create an opportunity. And I thought Van der Ven on Saturday was excellent at that. What was you going to say? Sorry, Seb?
I think it's a good point as well. Like against like lower blocks and teams that are going to sit off you, a lot of the time it's obviously down to the manager most of the time. But also, if you've got the players on the pitch that are just going to take responsibility and look to do the things that you need to do against the low blocks and teams that don't give you as much space, that just naturally is going to improve your ceiling or improve your floor against those teams anyway. That's what's been so frustrating. Is like Gray Gray not being in the team, Bergwijn not being in the team in these kind of games, you literally just put those those two players in there, and then Simmons in the 10, and then a technical winger. All of a sudden, there is less onus on Frank and what he is doing, sort of how he's setting us up, because those players are going to naturally do that anyway if we've got more of the ball against those teams. And that's why I think it's so important for him, just almost his team selections over the next couple of weeks in games like that, as well as obviously developing tactically as a manager.
This is a great point, because I think one thing I think I've just noticed in the last 2 games is we're committing at least one extra player into the final third, and that seems so simple and basic, but it makes such a difference. Just having one extra runner, let's say like a fullback at times, like Spence or Porro will making runs beyond that. Just one extra player is such a difference maker, and we've seen that also from midfield at times, making running behind, and it doesn't have to be anything out of the ordinary, but just making that run might buy Javi Simmons an extra second to then be able to play a creative pass or whatever it is. It's just risk, really. It's just taking more risks. And at Spurs, you have to be more risk taking than risk averse. Like there's no 2 ways about it. And I think hopefully it seems to be realizing that.
Yeah, to jump back to the Brentford game for just a second, because I think what you were saying about getting the ball back in play quicker and those kind of things, I think as much as you could sort of spot the setup straight away from Brentford in terms of what we were going to do, and it kind of almost felt immediately more comfortable because we've had more success in the games where we've set up like that, playing out from the back and also creating chances in the final third. But there was a noticeable difference in the speed in which we played, but also the speed in which we recovered the ball and, like you said, got the ball. And it's just like it has felt so pedestrian in some of the other home games. And that is just like you said, I think that's a really important thing to factor in here, is that intensity can just lead to players feeling more in the game, feeling more alive, feeling more sharp, more likely, and having more of that desire to actually make things happen because the game is being played at a faster pace. So I think that's just it. And this is the thing, we haven't been asking for loads, have we? We've not been asking for Frank to completely rip it up and start again. And that's been the frustrating thing, is that when you go back to pre-season, you go back to some of the early games at certain points, there have been things to cling on to in terms of the way that he wants to play at Tottenham. And that's actually makes it more frustrating in a way, because if Frank was just doing nothing right, then it wouldn't be... You would just say that I know we've called for him to go off the back of the Fulham game, but I think people would have gone much earlier, and people would have just gone, there's no hope. It's not, I just get him out. I'm just so done. Whereas I feel like a lot of the sentiment, despite the anger off the back of the Fulham game, was like, oh, it's a real shame that this kind of hasn't worked out in a way, because we've actually seen green shoots. It wasn't like Nuno where there was other than results at the start, there was nothing to cling on to whatsoever.
It's frustration.
That's what's made it more frustrating, because there's actually been green shoots there with Frank so far. And I think, like I said earlier, hopefully Fulham was as bad as it got, and maybe we had to stoop that low to kind of for him to realise that it's not just a let's rip it up and start again. Yeah. And it's not just about getting back to basics. It's almost like, right, well, that's kind of more back to basics in a sense, but just having that reflection to go, what have I done that's actually gone right so far? Let's do that. And okay, the game plan's played into our hands a little bit, but you've got to be a good team to take advantage of that, and we've got the quality to do that to teams. So that's what's been pleasing. But I think that noticeable step up in intensity has been pleasing.
Yeah, it's been since the start of the season. I mean, we've said on this podcast, it's just almost been small things that you've wanted to see, like playing a Bergwijn over a Paulinho, because you can't underestimate the kind of difference that has. And you talk about intensity. There's a reason why players like Paulinho, being on the pitch, slow the game down for us so much in possession, because he wants the game slowed down for him, because he's not good enough to play on the ball at a high pace. So he wants to take a touch, and he's always saying, come on, calm down everyone, whereas you don't want to do that. Whereas Archie Gray is the kind of player who's like, I don't give a shit, give me the ball on a half turn, fire the ball into me, I'll do something with it. Lucas Bergwijn loves playing when there's chaos around him, when the game's being played at a fast pace, and just having those players in there, I feel like Frank has now finally realised, given how little we've seen Paulinho over the last week, even in the Fulham game, it was like, that is probably what he's realised, I have to make this change now. And like you say about that being as bad as it got, maybe that was just the proper, sort of kick up the arse. I don't know how he's not done it earlier, to be honest, but maybe that was the final straw where he was like, okay, I've been aware of this change and this potential change needing to happen. He's now made it. And I just hope he persists with it, because if he plays Bergvall and Gray and Simmons in the 10 and is more brave with his team selections, he will see a change long term over the next couple of weeks. He'll start to see that those kind of players can be trusted in the tougher away games, in the bigger games, because there is almost no benefit at the minute to... I mean, Paulinho can still have a role in the squad this season. Bentancur obviously can as well and looks better with a Bergvall or a Gray next to him, but like you said, it's about now seeing that consistency over time with Frank and him learning and adapting sort of with these changes that he's made.
I don't want to be negative about this, but there was a Newcastle game in between Fulham and Brentford where we saw more of the same.
That's a worry.
That could have been the turning point as well. But I think
that's true.
Well, Newcastle away is a tough game, and obviously this is the thing with that Newcastle game. I saw people very, very happy about that result. And I think that result would have been great in isolation. Like you go,
that's what I said after the game.
But with the context added to it, I think it was more of
they're
the
not
same.
very good. Like they're not the same Newcastle. They're 13th in the table.
They should have put away that game as well.
Yeah, they should have. But also, like they were. It feels like it's something. I mean, this is kind of going off topic for Spurs, but like, there's been chat about Eddie Howe needing to like kind of evolve his style and all these kind of things. Yeah. And I remember like going to Newcastle under Ange and that it was like they would set up in that 5-4-1 sort of like mid to low block and then just try and hit you on the counter. It was like Newcastle this season, it feels like there's been a bit of a general shift in the way they play maybe at home, where they're far more aggressive in terms of their press. They're committing more numbers forward. And they've always had a team that's had energy, but they've always been the team that's kind of been a bit more of the subservient side rather than going out and being the aggressor. It was like, actually, if we'd had a little bit more of an in-possession game plan and a bit more calmness kind of on the ball, and Van de Ven playing next to Romero in that game. I get that obviously Van de Ven was one of the only players that played like every game up until that point or whatever he said, and you want to rotate and rest. I get that. But they were there to play through. They were. And it was like, if we'd had a bit more quality on the pitch in the final third as well, rather than playing Johnson out there and all these kind of things, it was like that actually was a game where you could have shown some of the shoulda, woulda, coulda. At least we've got to a point now where in the last couple of games we have seen a bit of progression. And like you said, that's exactly what I said after the game. I was like, in isolation, that's a fantastic result, and you can come out and say we showed great character to get back into the game. Look at Romero stepping up. We didn't just roll over. We fought back. We've had a terrible record there, but if you strip away the fact that it was Newcastle away, which you can't really do, but it was two moments of individual brilliance that kind of bailed us out once again to get through for a game like that. But also, maybe that was just in trying to put a positive spin on it. Maybe that belief that then that gave the team to say, look, we've got a monkey off our back there. We've got a good result there. Showed a bit of character. It just gives you a bit more confidence going into the next game that we can then build on it. And also, it's like after Everton away, Kish, I know you were a lot more down on that. Like I wasn't really at that time, because I was like, again, in these away games where it's tough places to go, I don't mind being a bit more reliant on set pieces as long as you can limit yourself to conceding. I know we had a few chances against us in that game, but like we deserved the win. It wasn't a great performance, but it's definitely more been at home that's been the real bugbearer for us.
More the context of everything around that, wasn't it? I want to say, because I think a player that will make such a difference, like more of a difference than I think everyone is giving it credit for, is Dejan Kulusevski, in terms of at the moment when Javi Simmons, because obviously Frank feels like Javi Simmons can't start too many games in a row at the minute. Whether that's the case or not, or should be the case or not, that's clearly how he feels. And that's why I worry about him not starting on Saturday, because that would be 3 games in the space of a week for him where he started and played a lot of the football. But he feels as though Bergvall is the backup number 10 right now, which obviously limits us so much because he's not a number 10 and he's not the same kind of player. Whereas I feel like if we had a Dejan Kulusevski fit from the start of the season, somebody who has the physicality that Frank likes, who can play in that 10, who can rotate minutes with Javi Simmons, and we still don't know when he's back, and we probably won't see a good level from him this season because he's a player who relies so heavily on him physically. And me and Ben were discussing this the other day, Kish, where we were saying if Kulusevski's off it by 10% physically, that gives you almost like a 30%, 40% worse output and player from him. But if you have that Kulusevski who can come in and rotate minutes with Xavi, and who, if Xavi's not starting, it will be Kulusevski. If Kulusevski's not starting, it will be Xavi. I think that will make a big difference to that as well, because I do think that now it's so important to have Simmons starting. And you saw that against Newcastle when he came off the bench immediately. He was looking to pick up the pockets in the space that the Newcastle midfield were leaving, and we just didn't have that in the first,
Yeah.
Did he come on with he came on with like 12
It was like
minutes
15.
to go,
Him and
didn't
Tell came on together, didn't he? It was like
Annoyed
15
me
minutes
so
ago.
much.
He made like a triple change, I think. It was like Richarlison, Tell, and
Yeah.
Simmons. I was crying out for Simmons to start that Newcastle game before, and I think people outside of Tottenham, like we was getting messages in our group chat being like, "How can you say like it's like the physicality of getting alive?" It's like I don't think Simmons cares about physical. He's been shoved off the ball a couple of times, but fucking Odegaard gets shoved off the ball. Like all these,
I don't know where this came from. Like there seems to be something this season that not like these number 10s have to be really strong to cut it in the Premier League. Like we've seen. Number 10s have never been that's never been what matters at number 10 and football.
It's like Paul O'Keefe.
Yeah,
it's like Paul O'Keefe's tweet the other day where he was like, "Oh yeah, it's like all about the physicality with Xavi." It's just, it's just not.
When is that?
I think when he said that, I think people get like physicality. They kind of all group these words sometimes into one thing where it's like. It's not adjusting to the physicality; it's adjusting to the intensity. And this is what I remember, Kish. I mean, you did that podcast with Flav when Simmons first signed. It was like it's not going to be about that because when you watch loads of clips of Xavi at Leipzig, it's like, and you see the way that he flies into tackles to win the ball back, and the intensity in which he plays with. Like he's not shy of the physical. He's not a pussy. No. Like let's be right. Like let's be frank. Like he's not gonna like not shy away from it. And I think that you saw the difference that Xavi made in the Newcastle game in the Carabao Cup, where they didn't play with Joelinton, Guimaraes, and Tonali, but they played with Tonali, Ramsey, and I can't remember who it was. So it's energy, still a bit of physicality in there as well.
Yeah.
And obviously they've got two big physical centre backs that are going to step up and also make it difficult for him as well. It's like,
but there's upside there with that. Do you know what I mean? So if you have these big guys that want to hit you very hard, you have more low center of gravity. You can move quicker. You can accelerate. It's always a trade off.
Yeah, and getting booked as well. Like that happened in the Newcastle game. Like there was one in the Carabao Cup game. There was one example that I showed in my preview for the league game. I was like, this is why we've got to play him. It was like, I think it was Paulinho actually, because Paulinho played centre half and he actually played quite well. He played like the ball in front of him all the time, and like he fires the ball into Simmons, who takes the ball in a half turn. I think it's Bernard, it might be Chow actually. Like steps up, Simmons gets away from him, books him, and it's like, well, he's not going to do that again, is he? He's not, and then you've got more space to run into, and they have to back off you because they can't come out and afford to foul you again. And that is the upside of players like that.
Attributes are more than just pure strength. You know, there's like balance, agility. These things, they're all trade-offs, right? Like the best number 10s in the history of the game have never been physically built, but they thrive in other areas. And I think, like I said earlier, Javi Simmons is finding solutions to a very strong and intense league that doesn't require him going to the gym and putting on loads of muscle. It's about finding more intelligent and smart solutions that number 10s always have done. Like Bernardo Silva has cut it, 10, 15 years as one of, 10-ish years. 10 years? How long has he been there?
Yeah, he's been there since like 2017, I think he signed from. Yeah, so basically 10 years.
As a, 5'7", 5'8", skinny guy who has been consistently one of the best players in the league, not because he's strong, but because he's so good at getting away from people and being smart in the opposition. You don't need to be strong to cut it in this league. You need to obviously understand that there's strong players and know that they might come and hit you and that the intensity is going to be fast, but it doesn't mean that the only answer is you have to hold your ground and hold them off. No, that's not the answer.
It's the Damgard effect, I think, because when he was at Brentford, he needed a year. And I think people just looked at that and automatically assumed that, okay, well, if a 10's coming in under Thomas Frank, he needs a year before he properly hits those highs.
Also, he had injuries, though, didn't he, like Damsgaard? He's always struggled, like, not just with, like, the intent. He's had a really very weird time in the Prem. I think he's a top player, but he's had some very weird time in the Prem. One player that does balance the physicality and the quality that is required to play in the Premier League is Mohamed Cudis. And last night was another very exciting performance from him last night. But I've got to be honest, there were a few little bugbears that kind of started to annoy me a little bit about Cudis. But the trade, I tweeted at half time, I was like, but it irritates me slightly, but the trade-off is so worth it. It's not like anything that makes you like worry about a player. But it does make me think, when you talk about Kulusevski, I think what Kulusevski does bring in terms of his intelligence does balance out what Cudis maybe lacks at times, and I think that's releasing a pass at the right time when you've got when there were so many opportunities actually in that 3 or 4 opportunities in that first half where like he'll do something brilliant on the touchline, drive inside, get away, and then it's like you've got runners in behind. It's like just get your head up and it's like that's what's been a little bit frustrating.
Simple
And
pass
also,
as well, it's like literally the rolled pass through.
yeah, it was like Odebear, Richarlison. There was a couple where it's like you've opened them up. Now just do the simple thing. And it's like I said on Saturday to my stepdad, I was like, there was, and I think I saw you tweet about it, Kish, last night, where he he's so insistent on like taking the ball in his chest and just juggling.
He needs to
like,
stop doing that.
He does, because Van der Ven and Romero went mental at him against Bournemouth for doing it, which put us under pressure. That was when he flicked it up, wasn't it? He did it last night. I've
seen him do it 2 or 3 games in a row.
He does it basically he gets
the ball in his chest, and instead of just bringing it down, he does like 4 kick-ups first, and it hasn't worked every time. And it's not, you're not even like, that's not even entertaining me because you're going the wrong way.
No.
You're going towards
and also, he will score. I said on Saturday, I was like, he will score a. There'll be one moment where he scores a Puskas like level goal for us. We're all like, oh my god! But there will also be a moment where it puts us under pressure. But also,
they scored from it the first time he did it, not last night. I can't remember who that was against. But
it was Saturday against Brentford, where he it wasn't the juggling. It was like him and Simmons were on the touchline. He just scooped it up with the outside of his foot to flick it over the defender's head, and it went out for a throw. They took a throw quickly and were in on goal, and they went mental. But one thing I was going to say off the back of that is like that is a slight irritant, but also like there's always like it's so close to coming together. Like he will score one of those amazing goals, but there was so many moments where his final touch just lets him down a little bit. It's so heavy, and I don't know whether it's because he's like a road runner, where it's like where he's got like it's like a horse, got his blinkers on. It's just like go for it, and then he's just not seeing the bigger picture or not picking the pass, or like it just gets a bit complacent. Whereas like Kulusevski never does that.
I saw a good tweet though that said if he was able to do those things consistently, he wouldn't be playing for Spurs. Like, do you know what I mean? That's
yeah. I think we will reap the benefits of him being that quality, but that might be the thing that holds him back. But we're still going to see so much upside.
Exactly, and I think if you provide him with volume of the ball in better situations, he's not going to execute every single moment, but let's say we give him, 6 or 7 opportunities to run into space and whatever with the ball at his feet. If he makes 6 or 7, I forgot you lot are immature. He'll make 2 of them count, and that's all that matters. I mean, he's never going to be someone who's a consistently efficient player in the final third, but because of all his other qualities, there will be output from him. There will always be output from him.
I also think that he's the kind of player that rises to levels as well. Like, you're going to see that kind of thing less from him against like top sides potentially. And like, I think there are times in games where he, like last night, it was so easy for him. Like, he's so dominant against a side like that. He knows that if he wanted to, he could skin his fullback every single time. So maybe there's a little bit of complacency that seeps into his game when we are more comfortable in games. Whereas the top players, they put their foot down. They go, I'm smelling, 3-4 goals and assists in this game for me. Whereas he does like to take the piss a little bit, which I love. And obviously he's got the ego that top players have to have, and you can tell. And I love that. And obviously we all love it when he does these things. And like we spoke about at the beginning of the season, we've not seen a player like this who's going to do a Neymar touch, who's going to try and flip the ball.
That's what makes it far easier to forgive the imperfections.
It's so exciting.
Bear in mind those. Like, I love that stuff. The only one I don't want him to do is the kick ups towards his own goal. One, I don't think that's that impressive. Like, I just like any footballer can do kick ups.
He's seen the Tom Garrett video. He's like, I need to prove that no ball.
I love the fact that he wants to entertain.
Yeah.
Like, I think especially where Spurs are right now, I think we've been dying out for a player like that, someone who's going to get you off your feet, and we haven't had that in a while, and the stadium's depressing as it is at the moment. I haven't been to the last 2 games. Maybe I'm the problem.
I mean, it's been last night. Obviously, we had Sonny back before the game, which really kind of obviously gave everyone naturally a lift, which was lovely. And then the atmosphere was better. It was 47,000 people there though, which is just like, again, people. The games are priced too expensive. I think people are still.
That's why
even just like
£65 in the South Stand. I was like,
And I also think there's like, it was a few weeks ago, I did I was on the Fighting Cock with Ricky, and Ricky was talking about the fact that, I think it was for the Fulham game, he's got a season ticket with him and his dad's a senior citizen in the eyes of Spurs, obviously cheaper ticket, whatever. And he wanted to bring his daughter for that game. And Spurs charged him like 15-20 quid to transfer the ticket to his daughter, because obviously the difference in price between a child's ticket and it's like, it's those little things that really, and some, like one of the guys I go with had the same thing last night. where it's like they've got 2 seasons. I can't remember why, but it's just like it's those little things that what we were kind of talking about before we started the wrong way. It creates that disillusion and disconnect between the fan.
Yeah.
It's those little things that they've still got a long way to go in terms of repairing. You feel like getting taken the piss out of at every opportunity. Basically.
Don't they take a little bit of money off when you sell it on the
It's an admin fee for buying the ticket. And when you buy a digital ticket, which the club have got, they don't have to do any admin. You get charged a £3 admin fee for doing your own admin. It's like it's those little things that really add up over the course of time, and pair that with poor results and poor performances. Obviously, I think that really does create that kind of disconnect between the fans who just feel like every single opportunity Tottenham get to try and make some money, they will do it.
100%.
But like we said earlier, Brentford was a lot better because I think again the atmosphere wasn't amazing and the attendance wasn't absolutely amazing, but I just think it was like seeing Xavi off the kind of leash and all these kind of things. It was just like
as well. Scoring early always helps.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like that's when Frank can. I think if we're just more aggressive and can blow the game open, Frank is such a good manager to be able to just pick teams off. Like I really think he is.
And he's so much better in games day when we're winning because teams will then be forced to press and that leaves the spaces open. So this is why I don't really understand why he's approached games the way he has, because if we can score early one or 2 goals, then the game is in his hands, and he loves the fact that then you can counter-attack on teams, and that's what we should be trying to do.
It's like we said at the start of the season, I think, with that against Burnley, that obviously we scored early with Richarlison, good cross. We weren't spectacular in that game, but it was like the 3rd goal that Johnson scored. You know, when Romero wraps it into, I think it was Richarlison, and then Sarr picks up the 2nd ball and Johnson makes the run. It's like I think we all thought we're going to see that goal so much, and I think then you start thinking about the I know it was to break the game open, but like you look back at that Richarlison goal at the weekend as well, and it's like if we do go 1-0 up early in games, it's like hopefully that's a goal that we're going to see so much because players just form into their kind of like patterns and their shape, and they know what to do once the game's a bit more open, and you'll see Simmons make those runs and stuff. So hopefully that is the case, but you've got to find the solutions to break the game open.